Welcome to another episode of The Greatest Pod, where we discuss and debate what makes something great. I'm Ron Swallow.
I'm Ed Greer, and today we have a fabulous guest. I met her on a panel, and she was just so funny and delightful that right after the panel at WonderCon, I was just like, I gotta have you on this podcast. And luckily she said yes. She's a staff writer for comicbook.com and the co-host of the Phase Zero podcast and Hollywood Already Did It. It's Marvel Pair Up podcast. So please give it up for a wonderful lady of comic letters, Jamie Jirak.
Hello. Thank you for having me. What a nice intro that was.
You are great. Well, let's get right into it. So this is why you're the expert for this episode.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. You know, all my podcasts are about Marvel. So when I get to come on a show and talk about something else that I love, it's so exciting, especially when that thing is Nicolas Cage, otherwise known as Nicolas Kim Coppola. This fine man has a new movie out right now called The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, where he plays himself. Mm-hmm. So in honor of that, I watched one Cage movie every day this month leading up to the release. I was only supposed to watch 21, but I watched 33 because I like extra credit. And there are even a couple that I wish I would have fit in. And there were a lot that they referenced in the movie that I didn't expect. So it's been a treat. And if you're watching this on video, you can see that I got a Massive Talent pillow today, and it's next to my Mandy doll.
Well, yes, Ron and I, as he can attest, just saw that movie yesterday, last night, actually. And I, for one, perked up when I saw it. Was funny in the movie Massive Talent, slight spoilers, there's a part where he sees a shrine of different stuff to him, and he's got the Mandy axe. But he doesn't mention the Mandy axe. I'm like, you mentioned the other thing. Mention the Mandy axe. You forged that yourself in the masterpiece that is Mandy.
At least to have the chainsaw call out.
Yeah, the chainsaw call out was great.
That movie was hilarious. Now, you clearly are a huge Nicolas Cage fan. Where and when and how did that all start?
Great question. So the only person on this earth I love more than Nicolas Cage is John Travolta. I am John Travolta's number one fan. John Travolta told me himself I was his number one fan, and I stand by it. So when I was a kid, I loved Face Off. And I still love Face Off. I've watched it twice since January. It's so good. But I wouldn't say it was until I was in 8th grade and I became obsessed with adaptation that I became really appreciative of Cage as an actor. Because for a while he was just, for me, like an action movie star, which I love. I'm a big action movie fan. I don't think there's any greater run than The Rock to Con Air to Face Off. Like, what an insane 96 to 97, crazy. But adaptation was really when I started to appreciate him and just get more into his stuff. And he's just in two of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, which are Adaptation and Moonstruck. I have 3 Nic Cage tattoos, and 2 of his face. I also have 3 John Travolta tattoos. I recently got both halves of their face and Face Off. So my love of Travolta kind of sparked my love of Cage.
Travolta, the greatest gateway drug towards Nic Cage fandom.
So, this was when you were, mid school, high school type of age?
Yeah. Face Off came out when I was 7. So, and I don't think I saw it too long after it came out. Adaptation, I was 8th grade when I saw the movie. So 13, 14.
Yeah. That's the time when you become a fan of something. And I became a huge Bruce Lee fan because of that. Yeah. And have, obsessively watched every single thing that Bruce Lee was in. And then, of course, that Brandon Lee was in as well. When you find somebody that you really like at that specific age, it's hard to get away from them. Like, it's almost impossible. And Nic Cage is a great one to follow because he's got range, but he also takes some of the worst projects of all time. And I love that personally. Personally love that he's just willing to do movies that he's like, I want to try this out. Fuck it.
Yeah, and there was a while there where
whatever it is.
he needed money for sure. I think he's good now, but one thing that even bad Nic Cage movies are so good. Like I've seen The Wicker Man so many times because it's just fun. It's so silly and dumb. And I finally watched the original for the first time, and it's so good that it makes me enjoy how bad the remake is even more. We already have a good Wicker Man. Let's have a bad one. That's fun. I love Drive Angry. As a Marvel person, I do wish the Ghost Riders were better, but they have their moments.
Did you see his Bad Lieutenant that was in New Orleans?
Mm-hmm.
That
I like it better than the original, which is not popular.
Well, I don't think that's a popular opinion, yes. Yeah. But you know what? I might concur just because, and for Ron, I know you ain't seen that shit. No. It's basically the movie Bad Lieutenant, which starred Harvey Keitel as this shitty, venal detective guy who would like pull chicks over and do weird stuff to him and like snort coke all day and bet a whole bunch, almost get his family blown up because he has so many gambling debts, even though he's a cop. He's just a horrible person. And the Bad Lieutenant in New Orleans, it also has Katrina vibes are happening, basically. Like, or Katrina's either about to happen or it's just happened. And the city is messed up. So this one lieutenant has all this leeway and he gets himself in all this trouble. And I think that change to the Bayou location for Bad Lieutenant makes the story more, it presses harder. It has a more of a, I don't know, this inevitability about it.
It's also Werner Herzog. And so there's weirdness. Like there's a shot like at Nic Cage from the point of view of a lizard. It's wild. And I like it better because I'm rooting for Cage in that version. And I love Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel is also one of my favorite actors, but I just, he's too icky in his version.
Yes, exactly. You can't root for him to win. And that's what makes some of these movies that have like, we're going to get to Face Off in a minute, but the movies that have two characters that you can root for equally, I am a man of a certain age, so I have to bring up Heat as an example of this, because it's like when there's two characters that you actually want to win, there's a whole nother, it feels to me even better and more like I'm on the edge of my seat more than a regular movie. And I think Face Off almost qualifies, honestly. I mean, Castor Troy is a piece of shit, but he's got so much style.
Oh, he's having fun. I totally agree. And especially because it's like so warped of John Travolta doing a Cage and Cage doing a Travolta, and they're doing it so well that you just never want you want to have a whole series about what happens when they keep switching faces.
If you were forced to, and this is one of those horrible questions.
Okay.
Let's do like a top 3.
Oh, easy, because those are what I have my tattoos of.
Like they just did in the movie.
In Master Talent. I love that Javi, Pedro Pascal's character, who, by the way, he slays this movie. Are you kidding me? He's so good. Amazing.
But
his favorite movie of all time is Face Off, which I respect. But Adaptation's number 1, but Moonstruck is a close second. I also love Cher. So my Moonstruck tattoo is of Cher and Nic Cage kissing. And one day I will have a tattoo of Cher and Mamma Mia too, so she will join their club of being on my body more than once. Then Face Off is easy third.
Okay.
I think the harder question would be me picking a 4th. Well, because that's when it gets murky.
Yeah, that is where it gets hard. But
same question for you.
I don't know that I can answer that, man, because mine are definitely going to be weird because I pick it just based off of his particular performance, because I share your kind of mean supposition that he has been in some crap. So given that, though, he is the thing that gets this crap made. You know what I mean? They get him attached and it becomes like it's somebody's dream that happens because they get Nic Cage attached. So I have to give some of those movies like fucking Kiss of Death sucks. Nic Cage is great in it. He's great in it. He's like overhead pressing people over his head. He got stupidly buff, like more than Cameron Poe buff. Oh, not Cameron Poe, whatever his name is in Con Air. And
that's
Con
Cameron
Air.
Poe, you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He got more than that buff for it. He's like
I haven't seen this one,
thug.
so
Kiss of Death is crazy. It's got Samuel L. Jackson in it as a DEA agent or something that got wounded in his eye, so his eye is always leaking and he's dabbing it with a napkin. And Nic Cage is a big like Tony Soprano if he worked out 100 times a day type of gangster in it. It's a crazy movie. It was one of you remember when they tried to make Fetch happen and make David Caruso a star? It was one of those movies, the dude from CSI. They wanted to make him a star, and he was a star in it, and that's why you never heard of it. But it's a wasted Nic Cage powerhouse performance. You should definitely check it out.
Good to know. I think one of his best performances ever is Vampire's Kiss, and that movie's not, in my opinion, not good. But when I say best, it's just the most pinnacle Cage performance there ever has been. And I hate to recommend that movie because he's just like verbally abusing his poor assistant the whole time, and he's nuts in this movie, and it makes you uncomfortable. But it is Pete Cage. It is the highest I think he has ever gone, and I think because that is a must-see movie. I don't really like Leaving Las Vegas, but he won an Oscar for it for a reason. He's really good in it.
Well, the cagiest Cage movies. So, like, I wouldn't say Kiss of Death is one of them. I'm going to go conventional. I love Adaptation because of the yeoman's acting job he had to do in it. I love The Rock because that was the last time they ever let a dork be a hero in a movie, full stop. Search your mind for the next time some actually dorky person got to be the hero and not in some coming of age thing where we're all trying to lose our virginity before fucking prom or some bullshit. And actually,
so Spider-Man doesn't count.
No, Spider-Man does not count. Okay. Dude, Spider-Man's got abs and a hot girlfriend. I understand that he's a nerd as well as those attributes, but we're talking about this guy and Goodspeed, frankly. He worked at the FBI. He did okay. His wife,
but he also has a hot girlfriend.
Yeah, he does. So I'm just saying, like, just grown ass dork. You know what I mean? Not like some prepubescent person coming into their own. A grown ass dork hero of movie. You can't name another one. It was one of the last times you ever saw it. So I gotta love that performance. Cause he was a geek, he was an eccentric, and he was in way over his head. And I love it that, movies in this modern era seem to make everybody an ex-special forces. You know what I mean? So that, so they can, you know, say why you can beat up the bad guys because they stole your husband or whatever. But he doesn't do that in The Rock. I have to give that a real big credit. And, he acts so good. He defeats Michael Bay's direction and a lot of the scenes in that movie. You know what? I'm a face-off person. But I gotta say I'm a Con Air person. He saves that movie from being Steven Seagal-esque Drek. Honestly.
So good.
I love Con Air. That's my favorite.
Yes,
the scene
I respect it.
where he's where his friend is like dying from the diabetes, and then he stands up and walks towards the bad guys, and they shoot him in the arm, and he like doesn't give a shit, and then just kills everybody. Is one of my favorite all-time scenes in an action movie ever. It's amazing. His accent is just pure like joy. I just love everything about that movie. Steve Buscemi's creepy ass role in that thing is so great. It's just that whole movie. I really love that. So that's probably in my top 3. Then I'm going to have one that nobody should have in their top 3, but I feel like everybody should have in their top 3, and that's Gone with 60 Seconds. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Okay. Yes, she does have dreadlocks. It's a terrible decision. I get it. That movie is so fun.
I wrote just a few notes down for this one. And one of the ones I remember was the age of Cage or the stage of Cage. Because I feel like he has different ages and different stages. Like there's different time periods, almost like the Cretaceous and the Precambrian and whatever, of Nicolas Cage. And I think obviously his super high movie star period is in the 90s. We can all agree with that. Yeah. But then there's all these like Raising Arizona, where he lends this quirky persona to him and Holly Hunter, right? Yeah. They do a great job in that movie creating the reality where you can root for these people to like steal babies and stuff.
Oh, that's a top 5 for me for sure. Mm-hmm. That movie's amazing. Yeah, I think there's that like kind of late 80s where he's coming of age. We've got Moonstruck, we've got Raising Arizona, we've got Peggy Sue Got Married, which he's Cher wanted him for Moonstruck because of Peggy Sue. She fought for him, and he's a lot younger than Cher. I think he was 23 when they made that movie, and she was like 37 or something. They work so well together. They have such good chemistry, and really that's so we've got like the early kind of Cage that's more, I would say, bubbly. These movies that are cute and sweet and wholesome, and even Raising Arizona is Coen's, but it's for a Coen's movie. It's one of their bubbliest, cutest, fun movies. And then he has this like little dramatic attempt, and that's when in 95 is when he makes Leaving Las Vegas. But after he won that Oscar, that's when he went full action. That's when he did those 3. And then we have the 2000s hit. He makes Gone in 60 Seconds. And then after that, he's making these like more, indie, smaller. We've got Adaptation. We've got Matchstick Men. We've got The Weatherman. Like these, like, I think he was like trying to win another Oscar, but he only got nominated for Adaptation. And then after that, once that era ended, it was we were bad for a while, except for National Treasure. That was like, I think his probably biggest blockbuster. That kind of fit weirdly into. Treasure's amazing. It's so good. But I don't ever think of that as a Nic Cage movie. I think that is a Disney movie.
It's so weird looking through all the good movies he's done because Valley Girl.
Yeah, I love Valley Girl.
Valley Girl's so fucking good. That is a fucking great movie.
Yeah, that's with those 80s gems for sure.
Yeah.
What about the Knowing and Next era? Because I think that's where, to me, it went off the rails in the A-list movies, because they were, as Ron alluded to earlier, these weren't just the tax movies. This isn't the tax era yet. Mm-mm. This is, where he's working to pay off taxes and all the Marvel comics he bought and stuff. It isn't that. It's him going, well, I know how to read a script. I know how to pick a role. These are winners.
I just watched Next for the first time, and people we were comparing it to like Drive Angry and Wicker Man in terms of fun, and it did not get there for me because the Next stuff that was so fun, and Peter Falk was in it. I lost my friggin' mind when Peter Falk was in that movie. But then it's all about him and Jessica Biel's weird romance, and Cage has really good chemistry with most women. I think. Sorry to say, Angelina Jolie is not on that list. But then, like, when we hit Ghost Rider, like, Eva Mendes doesn't work, and then Jessica Biel doesn't work. They kept trying to give him... I don't mind an age gap. Like I said, it worked so well in Moonstruck. But we hit these late 2000s, and with the exception of Diane Kruger in National Treasure, he's just not vibing with these women. It takes a while. I feel like not until maybe Mandy that you really believe again that he's with this woman.
Yeah, and I'm down to talk about Mandy all damn day. But I was gonna definitely ask about what did you think of Kick-Ass? Have you seen Kick-Ass?
When I saw this is the first time I saw it since theaters, when I watched it this month. And it's so dated, and a lot of it does not age well. A lot of those jokes are like him pretending to be gay to get a girl is like, oh, that hurts me. But it still has a lot of charm and a lot of originality that I really respect. And Cage is great in it. It's kind of like National Treasure, where I don't really think of Cage. I don't think of it as a Cage movie. Cage and Batman cosplay for 2 hours, and I think that's a good time.
A lot of times you watch a Nicolas Cage movie and you're like, this is so great because Nicolas Cage is in this fucking movie. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that he doesn't have great side characters and supporting actors and stuff, but I do feel like his whatever thing that Nicolas Cage has overwhelms a lot of movies. That
agreed. I feel like there aren't a lot of Nic Cage movies that you're like, this is an ensemble piece. That's not something you get a lot.
Yes.
Well, okay. What are some of those though? Because like I see what you're saying. Because like when you watch Kiss of Death, it's definitely an ensemble. But Nic Cage is the biggest thing about that whole movie, which is probably one of the reasons why it doesn't work.
I would argue some of the earlier ones, like I think Moonstruck and Raising Arizona, both qualify. Like we said, Kick-Ass. Not necessarily National Treasure, but kind of National Treasure. Because you got, even though he sucks in real life, you got John Voight's presence, and you've got Diane and the other guy who I don't know his name. And then the sequel is Helen Mirren, But Massive Talent feels definitely like you'd think it would be Nic Cage's movie, but I think it's both of their movies. Both him and Pedro.
That is a great duo. It really is.
Yeah.
Well, just as this is the part where we would talk about Massive Talent a lot, without spoilers, obviously. I think the interesting thing about Massive Talent is it's like Nicolas Cage is the player and Pedro Pascal is the court and the arena or something. You know what I mean? Like you have to have one to have the other. So like, and I think the movie's kind of like that in that like Nicolas Cage is an instrument. And like, he's like a really shreddy guitar, just crazy, just wild stuff. And you can put that in a classical song and mess it up, or a hip hop song and have a kind of decent bridge if you mix it right, or a country song and mess it up. You know what I mean? He's like playing this specific thing, and you got to know how to play Nic Cage. And from the script, I tell anybody, anybody in the world, and for the last 4 years, I read the script for Massive Talent a long time ago, like 4 years ago, because it was on the blacklist. And I just knew nobody would ever make that. It was one of those, people write them, they get an agent off of them, and then they just kill your voice and make that beautiful thing that you wrote to get in the industry die. They didn't do that. Like, they took it and made it into a movie, and it's just, as far as spectacle, to me, it had as much spectacle as any Marvel thing. Not to just put Marvel against every other movie, but like
these days, it's kind of the norm.
Because the theater me and Ron were in, for some reason, everybody chose to sit around us. Even these COVID times, we were just right all in the middle. But it was like we didn't care. Once the laughs start rolling in and you get that community of everybody being like, did you hear that? Did you see that gag? Oh, now they're on LSD, whatever, was happening.
Oh, man,
we were
great.
all just dying laughing at the whole thing. And it was like, it was one of the first times since a long time, since maybe that Spider-Man movie where everybody was clapping their Cheeto-stained forearms together, where I actually felt the sense of community inside the movie theater.
So you didn't see Jackass Forever in theaters, is what I'm getting from this?
No.
I'm looking at also other like lesser movies that kind of he's in them, and they're not using them right. It doesn't seem like. I think 8mm is on that list.
I haven't seen that, and I want to because it's directed by Joel Schumacher, and I love Joel Schumacher.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to turn my camera, you'd see a Batman and Robin poster on my wall. But I've heard mixed things about that one. I heard it's like deeply serious in a way that I don't know if I would like.
Yeah, it really is. Because it's about like a snuff film. So yeah, I don't know if you could get more serious than that. But it's just like, and also movies like Snake Eyes even. Snake Eyes has Brian De Palma doing so much stuff. I love Nic Cage in that movie. I'm not saying it's a lesser movie, but it's one of those ones that you don't think of until you go like, oh, remember Snake Eyes?
Of the movie, all the movies I watched for the first time this month, my two favorites were Bringing Out the Dead and Snake Eyes. And it's wild because Bringing Out the Dead is Scorsese and Snake Eyes is De Palma, and you don't ever think of either of those movies when you talk about their filmographies.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I loved both. I especially love Bringing Out the Dead, and I'm shocked it's not in the Scorsese conversation more. And Cage listed it as one of his top 3 favorite movies he's in. Mm-hmm. And Snake Eyes, I'm a sucker for a long shot, and that's just a whole bunch of long shots. Yep. It's very Birdman-y, and it had twists I didn't see coming. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you never think of those movies as part of his oeuvre. Just like, I think Peggy Sue is getting lost too because it was so long ago. I don't think people remember him being basically the lead in there, like the person who has to like have this transformative arc and become a better person to like earn Peggy Sue's love. Peggy Sue has to like become a person who can reject a person who doesn't really love her, and you know what I mean? He's doing a lot of good acting in there to make that story work, because if he was miscast. Yes, very weird.
He's got a voice going in that one, and it's very bizarre, but it's charming and fun. We didn't pick that I watched it anyway, but we didn't put it on our official list because to me it feels more like a Kathleen Turner movie. It's when I think Peggy Sue, I don't think Nic Cage, I think Kathleen Turner. But I do think it's Pedro Pascal listed his 5 favorite Cage movies, and that was on his list. He said it's very meaningful to him because he saw it in theaters with his father.
Oh wow! Yeah, a little guarding test there. I haven't, but I just want to really just go back and talk about his performance in Adaptation, though, because as a screenwriting nerd, as you could tell from me reading screenplays 5 years before they come out, Adaptation was another one of those great screenplays where you're just like, nobody's gonna do this. Why would anybody do this? This doesn't make any sense for somebody to actually film this. And it was in the, Being John Malkovich era where like Spike Jonze could like do anything. You know what I mean?
And Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah. And Charlie Kaufman. They were both just so hot, screenwriter and director, just so blazing hot. So how does Adaptation feel to you? Because to me, as somebody who's like, I felt seen as a screenwriter, as somebody who used to go to those seminars and listen to fucking Robert McKee and be like, oh, the first draft is actually the 18th draft, and the second act is actually the 5th act in the Euclidean structure. And, oh, Jesus Christ. And you've paid $300 for this.
So perfect. Adaptation is, like I said, it's so meaningful to me in so many ways. And I love Being John Malkovich just as much. To me, I think of them as like a pair, a beautiful pairing. And I just love how deeply meta it is and how how you really have to do a lot of research to know what's true and what's not. And when I was 14, that's exactly what I did. I bought The Orchid Thief. I read it. I was so obsessed with it. And, I just, both in college and then I went to film school or both in high school and in film school, I wrote a lot of papers on adaptation. I was just so invested in the deep thought of it all. And Susan Orlean is pretty active on Twitter. And she's very cute on Twitter. And maybe like 2 years ago, she tweeted that her son was watching adaptation. And of course, in real life, Susan Orlean does not fuck John LaRoche. That was not a real thing that happened. But when your teenage kid is watching this movie based on you, and you have to be like, not all of it's real, but some of it is real. So like a lot of the quotes that are directly from her book and a lot of stuff about, you see the set of Being John Malkovich. They actually have that on there. You have Catherine Keener playing Boggle. And then just on top of all that, it's just Nic Cage being amazing. He's so good. I always say people, like that episode of Community, where is he a good or a bad actor? And it's all about being over the top. If you watch adaptation, you watch Leaving Las Vegas, Matchstick Men's another example. He plays certain roles with such nuance. And the switch between Donald and Charlie is there's such a beautifulness to the way he plays these roles. And that's why I stand firmly in this belief that when he goes crazy in a movie, that's 100% calculated. It's not Nic Cage being Nic Cage. It's how he pursues a character, because he knows how to be subtle.
Yeah, I feel like that when he does go crazy, it's like what he thinks the character would do in that situation. Like, for instance, when he's playing his younger self in this newest movie, and he's doing the like shittiest version of himself as that character, when he's like, there's a part in it where he like yells and goes crazy, and I don't want to give it away because it's so funny that I don't want to interrupt it.
I went to the bathroom during that scene. No! I know what you're talking. I know. I'm going again tomorrow. I'm going to see it again tomorrow to make up for the fact that I missed what I know is the best part of the movie.
And when you think back on the cockiness of youth and what you thought was the right behavior and all of that stuff, they really bring that out in this. And Nicolas Cage really brings it out. He probably remembers what he was supposed to be like when he was a kid and what he thought was going on in his head. And that was hilarious, but also really genuine, like super genuine. So
Nicky Cage, that alter ego, was based off of Cage when he was doing his Wild at Heart press tour. That's why he's wearing a Wild at Heart t-shirt. And there's a video of him on a talk show, can't remember the name, where he's like just like going crazy and kicking the air and being really cocky. And Cage has said, actually in an interview with my job at comicbook.com, I didn't interview him, but he told our outlet that like that guy, that version of him was pompous. He was like that. And I think it's really cool that he was willing to lean into it. Just like I think it's awesome. I won't spoil what it is, but there's a really good Wicker Man joke. And it's like he can make fun of himself. And I wouldn't have guessed that Nic Cage was somebody that could make fun of himself like that.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those things where with Cage, going through his filmography, you see that I think he does look at movies as to what can I bring to it. And I think in the modern age, like I watched Pig the other day, and Pig could have been almost anybody in that role. At the same time, it couldn't, because I don't think there's that many actors that could be that captivating and not really say much. Like that's one of the most silent, kind of stoic heroes I've ever seen in a movie. And we're talking about a whole genre of stoic heroes where you just sort of like, I'm thinking I'm back, and you shoot 50 people before you say your next sentence. I could feel him feeling, if that makes sense. I could feel him feeling the whole time. And so in the movie, like, you think it's going to be some John Wick about him getting his pig back, and it's so much better than that. It's this like melancholy treatise on like dealing with loss and shit, you know what I mean? And dealing with like, maybe you had your moment. And I think that's one thing. It's weird how sometimes I'll see Cage pick a role, and, you know, it's very psychologically facile to say that he's going through something similar in his life at the time. They even touch on it in Unbearable and Massive Talent. They touch on sometimes you pick a project because you're going through something similar in your own life. But just like there's so many times when I see him just, maybe he was working out something. You know, I wonder what he was working out in Mandy, because he wasn't very verbal in that either. You know, Pig and Mandy come like back to back to back, and they're both very taciturn, kind of guys who lose. Those guys aren't the people who win. They may get revenge, but they don't win.
Yeah. Ugh.
What was he going through to be picking stuff like that?
I like that thought a lot. I also would like to say about Pig is that should have been his third Oscar nomination. Javier Bardem for being the Ricardos that's nominated. Are you freaking kidding me?
Robbery, I say. I watched that shit on Amazon, and that was a role where a lot of people could have played that role.
Will Smith
I don't
winning?
understand.
Wait a minute.
I mean, even that's even like I'm fine with that. Like, give the man his flowers, whatever. But like, also Peter Dinklage deserved it over Javier Bardem. Yep. I just makes me mad. But like, this should have been Cage, and Cage says Pig is his favorite movie of his, and I think that it's the performance he's most proud of, and I think that's really cool because it is. I think I want to be him for Halloween, and then my boyfriend is going to be Porco Rosso, so he's going to be my Pig.
I hope nobody steals them.
Never mind. Cut this out.
Oh, that's so funny.
We love your boyfriend.
Oh God,
I just want to say
he's a nice guy. I'm glad
he really is nice. I'd like to have him on sometime. He's. We had a good old conversation after the panel about just like all types of shit. Guys, I just think, also, I was trying to watch Leaving Las Vegas the other day, and I gotta say, it was like, it made me feel some real 97 feelings.
Every time I watch Rush Hour, same feeling.
You know what I mean? I just didn't want to be in a 97 frame of mind for that long. Elizabeth Shue is the stadium and the court in that one. And this is all just a metaphor for supporting somebody who's there to support your performance. It's like she goes there with him with these operatic heights, or when she's not supposed to be doing that, she doesn't. It's a really wonderfully directed movie. And again, I think the guy who wrote the screenplay actually died of. I think he died. I think he was going through a lot of that stuff. So I think that's why it's so well observed.
Ooh, it's I have never seen alcoholism displayed in such an extreme way. And that's another reason why I think he won that Oscar, is because he could have played that so poorly and so over the top.
It could have been like Dudley Moore or whatever, not to say that those performances are bad, but it wouldn't be right for this. Yeah.
No, and it's like serious. That's why I don't really like it, because it's too serious for me. But that's not to say it's not good and he's not good in it. It's just not my taste. But like the fact that like his whole hotel room is a bar, basically, he's literally just trying to drink himself to death. It's really bleak.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm looking at the rank of box office, and there's a couple of weird ones real high up there that I just want to bring up just because
interesting. I
think it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously it's National Treasure, The Rock, Face Off, Gone in 60 Seconds, but Ghost Rider, number 6.
Okay.
The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Oh, I paid to see that in theaters. I haven't seen it since, but I definitely saw
number
it in theaters.
8. And then Knowing.
That I haven't seen.
A movie I've never seen.
Yeah. I hear
MIT professor John. Yeah, I don't know.
Read the description, please.
Yeah, MIT professor John Kessler links a mysterious list of numbers from a time capsule to past and future disasters and sets out to prevent the ultimate catastrophe. It sounds really
similar to Next.
It sounds super interesting. $188 million it made.
Oh, but see, that's what I'm saying, though. That's when he was still part of the machine, where it's like, when you're
That's 2009.
Going down, yeah, but again, though, 2009 is not at the nadir. We're at 2022. This isn't tax time. 2009 isn't tax time. You know what I mean? This isn't Primal or that one where he's fucking around in the Chuck E. Cheese for half the movie or whatever.
I just watched that for the first time. Willy's Wonderland.
Is that worth it? Or
no? I was bummed. Like, there's some funness to it. It's like he beats up some animatronics, and that's funny, but there's a lot more to it that's boring and poorly acted, and he literally does not say a single word in the whole movie.
Whoa.
What?
He doesn't speak. And it's like, I don't want this. I don't want
that's terrible.
Talkie Cage. I wanted it to be more fun bad. I mean, if you're trying to get through his filmography, it's not like pulling teeth. It's just But I do recommend from this era, right before Mandy, Mom and Dad with him and Selma Blair. That movie.
I saw that. It was on Hulu, right?
I never saw that.
It's
What's
good.
that about?
It's something happens. I don't remember the inciting incident, but like all parents in the world now want to kill their children. So
Whoa.
it's basically Selma Blair and Nic Cage trying to kill their kids.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
really
amazing.
Good. It's good. And another recent, pretty decent one was Color Out of Space. I didn't love it, but it's weird, and it has some cool shit in it for sure.
Yeah, Color Out of Space, I think, is made by the same like company that made Mandy. I think they're almost like crowdfunded almost. I forgot what their name was.
Is it Legion M?
I think it's them. Yes,
because they made I don't know if you noticed at WonderCon they had a booth that was basically all Mandy themed, which is funny because the movie's 4 years old, so clearly that's like very much them. But that's where I got my Cage doll. I wanted to buy everything. They had so many, but it's like $18 for a pin. I got to draw the line somewhere.
Well, I still got my original Mandy poster that I got that night. That I went to the Egyptian to see it in the movie theater, and Panos Cosmatos was there. And he didn't say anything. He was like, "This is my movie. It is good." You know what I mean? And he was out.
More.
Yeah,
make more movies.
Yeah, dude. I'm a big Mandy fan because I just feel like a lot of these movies that have all this revenge and shit. Number one, they spare you from the ugliness of the hero failing whoever they're revenging. They spare you from it almost every movie. It's always out of their hand. They're knocked out. He had to watch bad stuff happen to somebody he loves. And he was filled with that. And I felt like as a performance, it's like Panos Cosmatos is a great director. But you would never accuse him of scintillating dialogue or any of the crutches that normal actors, have to use to get over. He's just behaving a lot in that. Like after he gets out of after the bad stuff happens, he goes in and he drinks like a whole bottle of vodka in the bathroom. That's the scene. But when Nic Cage does it, it's a totally different thing than you would think. You know what I mean? It's just fantastic.
And it comes really right after the Cheddar Goblin. So
oh God!
I have a Cheddar Goblin shirt now. I wish I would have worn it for the podcast. If you haven't seen Mandy, people listening, please go see it.
Yeah, and again, and just don't. And again, you know what I would also recommend if you're going to watch a lot of Nic Cage movies, especially Pig and Mandy. Don't watch it with your fucking phone near or the lights coming through your blinds and fucking up
That's
your TV.
Any movie.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm gonna start telling everybody
true.
that.
It's true, but I'm just saying most people just will not abide by that for most things. And I'm just saying, and I'm saying a lot of movies, frankly, these days could survive you checking your phone every now and again. But that's Mandy true. And them don't. You have to be trapped with it. You know what I mean? You have to be trapped with it to get the 100%. Full effect of this tone poem stuff it's doing. If you're letting yourself get yanked out of it every few seconds, like, I can watch a lot of Marvel movies looking at my phone, especially after I've seen it one time.
We've seen them so many times.
Yeah. But I don't.
Eternals.
Eternals felt like I was checking my phone at certain parts.
No. I still haven't rewatched Spider-Man since I bought it because I'm like, I want to be so tuned in, and also I'm ready to be so sad again. So, but it's like, but yeah, I get mad when I show somebody a movie and they're on their phone. That's a great thing about Tony. Tony and I are on the same page when it comes to we're watching a movie and we're invested in this movie we're watching.
Yeah, well, can you tell Tony to tell my girlfriend some tips? Jeez Louise, you would think she was solving world hunger with microtransactions on her fucking phone. You would think that was the case.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
My girlfriend has that habit a little bit too, but only at home. Like
if it was in the theater, you break up.
Oh, that's a break. That's a breakupable offense.
That's a deal breaker.
That's like, okay, you have a bad decision maker in your brain. That's what it is.
You're rude, is what you are.
Yeah.
At home, it's of course.
Yeah, I got in a little obsession with a video game that I've recently quit playing, and it was a problem. It was getting in the way of me enjoying a lot of great TV shows and movies that we would watch, and it'd be like, why am I doing this? I just missed the plot of something that I really enjoy. And I think a lot of Nicolas Cage movies, while the plot isn't necessarily always the best or whatever, depending on what we're talking about, but like you'll miss some cool thing if you fucking blink. His face is like I'm gonna make this weird argument. I think it's as good as Jim Carrey's face.
Interesting.
Because Jim Carrey is famous for having such a super expressive, funny face, and I think a lot of this work that Nicolas Cage does with his face is hilarious and subtle, but also he can go over the top with it too. Just my opinion.
Interesting.
I really
don't know
think
if
he's
I would
great
make
at it.
that comparison, but I respect it.
Yeah.
Well, best face in motion pictures. Him being in Face Off, now it starts to make a lot more sense. But no, I think I know what you're saying in regards to like, there's always something. I think it's to me it would be eyes and like the domino mask area of Nic Cage is always working on something. He's got some life in his eyes because he's thinking and he's responding in the moment to whoever he's acting against. That's one thing I really love about Nic Cage is like he's always acting hard. He's driving hard. He's acting hard. He's doing a good job because I think at first I didn't like what he was doing in The Rock. When I was a kid, I didn't like it. When I was a kid, I didn't like The Rock because I didn't like him. I thought he was being too goofy. And every year that I've aged since, I like it more and more because why would you take away all those tools he has to make him just another taciturn action asshole? He wasn't like old enough to play these quiet pig Mandy characters yet. He still had this youthful verve and he still had to use his words and use his face and stuff. So like, I love The Rock as a performance of his. I gotta say, I really do. Yeah. I think there's very few times in movies where I actually feel like the characters are scared. Cage can get across that he's scared or that he's in love or whatever. I believe him, even though I can stand outside myself and watch him do what he does and go, that's Nic Cage. I can still also jump back. I can go back and forth like the astral forms coming in and out of Doctor Strange character or something.
I like that assessment. That's cool. I've never thought about it. The scared thing. I like that.
Well, he's good. What do you think is what's so enduring about Face Off? Because honestly, man, if you just look on it on its merits, it is such a product of its time. It is so weird, but it stood the test of time. Why do you think that is? 2 words. John Woo. John Woo is such a great director. And I just, there's so much, there's just nothing needs to be trimmed. It's just such a tight, every second of that movie is entertaining and it's so weird and goofy. I make up a lot of movie drinking games and I have one for Face Off. And one of the rules is drink whenever science doesn't make sense. Cause who cares?
That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing.
The point is to get drunk. And it's just, but also a thing about the movie was written to be set in the future, but they didn't have the budget for that. So then they were like, well, who cares? This reality can have this it's little things like the face-off procedure, the prison with like the boots and stuff. They have these cool futuristic elements, but it flows so beautifully, even though it is 1997. And then you've also got, it's the performances, and it's not just John and Nick. Joan Allen is great in the film. I love Joan Allen, and she's such a good choice. They wanted someone younger. They wanted it to be a stepmother. So that they could have like a hot wife, and they fought hard because Joan Allen was who John Woo wanted from the beginning, and they fought hard for her because it was like, no, it's more impactful if it's the actual mother, and if this is like the real family dynamic, and it works, it just works so well, and the action's so good, everything happens, you think the movie's over, and then there's a boat chase.
Well, I definitely agree with you that Joan Allen is she's making that happen because just drop Denise Richards into that role and the fucking thing falls apart. The whole thing falls apart. Why do I care about you getting back with your your daughter age stepmom wife person?
Yeah.
Why do I care that you've repaired that? Why do I care that you're doing the hand face thing with her?
That's another part rule for the record.
Also, don't they like the other dudes? This was my ex-wife had a real problem with this movie, mostly because she was like, look, if some dude fucked me with some other dude, if like I get fucked and it's not your dick, I know it's not your dick.
Interesting point. But I feel like it's been so long since they've had sex.
That maybe she forgot that dick.
Yeah, maybe. Or just maybe John Travolta and Nicolas Cage have really similar dicks, because I believe that's possible.
Well, I mean, and I bring this up to people all the time. I bring this up to Smarty Pantses all the time. The wiener thing, it's a little out of bounds. I'm not even going to try to make mistakes for that. But like in the movie, they do show that like at the time Travolta was, packing a little more Ed Greerage around the middle than Nic Cage was. So they were saying that like, well, how did he get the body types? They show very clearly that they're going to do fat redistribution and shit on the body to make it be cool. So they could have just girthened them up or de-girthed them or something.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? In that same procedure, but they chose to be gentlemen and not tell you and not talk about that. But okay, I think this is the part where we can do, a lot of times in previous iterations of our podcast, we've done battle royales for fictional characters. I would love to do a 3-person battle royale with Nic Cage characters. And you can choose them, or we can all choose one or whatever. And it, obviously, the guy from Leaving Las Vegas would get fucked up by the dude from The Rock.
Is this all characters? Is this everything? Or are we narrowing it down?
I have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Why don't we take it from his top 3 grossing movies and do National Treasure, Benjamin Gates, The Rock, and Face Off.
So, all right, Benjamin Gates, Stanley Goodspeed, and Castor Troy.
Yeah.
I think Gates gets murdered almost instantly because Castor Troy
probably
is
true.
hardcore. Carapo is pretty hardcore. But of course, he is a hero. He's a heroic character. So, unless it takes place in a museum or something, then I feel like he has
Yeah, unless they're battling in like a Trivia Pursuit game.
You know what? To make it better, we should replace one of them with Cameron Poe.
That makes sense. The core 3 action movies. I feel like kick out Ben Gates.
Yeah.
And then it's Stanley Goodspeed, Cameron Poe, and Castor Troy.
Yeah. So how does that go down? Let's pick a spot for her to make the fight. Ed, what do you say? Where's the fight?
I don't know. It can't be on Alcatraz. But
Stanley's got the upper hand. But he's probably the weakest physically between the 3.
Yeah.
So maybe he needs a little upper hand.
Yeah, that is true. Cameron Poe could get PTSD from, it's another prison, brother. I'm thinking, fuck it. They have a big fight in Las Vegas. Each of them has probably been there before. It's a neutral ground. And they're not the character from Leaving Las Vegas. So boom, they're in Vegas and they're
Isn't Vegas where Con Air ends? Am I wrong?
Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm. That's true. Mm-hmm.
I'm watching a lot of his movies this month. There are a lot of movies that end up in Vegas of his.
Let's say it's specifically in the Flamingo.
I've stayed there when I was 16. I got it. It's visualized.
Yeah, perfect.
If we're in a casino, I think Stanley has some upper hand there because I think he'll use smarts to like hide, and I would be rooting for Stanley. But I don't think Stanley would win, but I'd be rooting for him.
I think Stanley would make some kind of move where like he put Cameron and Castor in this situation where tons of security showed up. Where he made it look like they were stealing from the casino or something, using some like
that's a
tech
Smarty
trick.
Pants move.
Yeah. He reports him for counting cards. He's like, "Oh, you see that long-haired mullet gentleman over there with the t-shirt on? He's counting cards." And then and the Castor Troy would have 2 golden guns on him. Like, that guy's armed, and they would pat him down to find the golden guns almost instantly.
The 2 of them would take out all of the casino security force, like, quickly.
Cameron, he wouldn't go after any innocent. Only Castor is bloodying up that casino. He is that there is collateral damage. It is New York in 2012 in the MCU. It is destroyed if Castor Troy is good. But but my instinct originally I was gonna say Castor because the dude has no morals. He's evil. He shot a kid. Killed a kid.
Yeah.
And the first time you ever see Castor Troy, he's killing children. But man, Cameron Poe is scrappy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that he teams up with, I think he teams up with Stanley, and then they take him out together.
Okay.
And then instead of fighting each other, they go to the buffet.
I think that's beautiful. I like the idea of two winners. And you know, as we've learned from adaptation and from massive talent, two cages are better than one.
Absolutely. And do you have any, if you were going to give somebody a primer as we round out here to watch all these Nicolas Cage movies, do you have some sort of vague viewing order or some vague ethos, or did you do it chronologically? If you're giving a final note to people listening to this who are intrigued by us talking about Nicolas Cage, this is how you get into Cage by Jamie. What would you say?
I did it chronologically, except with all the extras, I kind of threw random ones in there. Mm-hmm. But I really liked doing it chronologically because you see how he grows, and it's a good, because he's making similar movies in chunks, it flows really nicely. Once you get to the like mid to late 2000s, it's a little rough. For sure. Like watching, you know, you're going to have to watch Next and The Wicker Man and stuff all together. But, you just plan it right. Like, we accidentally this was not intentional, put Mandy on 420, and that was the most beautiful thing that ever could have happened in the history of accidents. So, you know, it's, if you're watching things like Wicker Man or Next, you know, I recommend drinking a little, having some fun. But if you're watching adaptation or Pig, you should have, you know, it should be a nice evening where you're ready to feel some emotions. And, but I think chronological order is a fine way to do it. And I think that I wrote an article, you can find it on my Twitter, of all the movies referenced in Massive Talent. So if you're only looking to just get references, then do that. But there are a lot of good movies not on that list, and there are some bad movies on that list. But I did, the order of the list is the order in which they're mentioned in the movie. So that's another way to do it.
Cool. What's your Twitter again?
Jamie Cinematics. Yes, the official Cage Month list, though, you can find on my Letterboxd, which is also Jamie Cinematics.
Oh, nice. And if you guys want to help out the podcast, join in our Patreon at patreon.com/The Greatest Pod, or leave us a review.
And thank you, as always, for listening to another episode of The Greatest Pod.